Are we recording?
Yeah, I've been recording. It's all good. You don't even gotta worry about it. I was like, well, I'm not gonna get up again to do.
The last one started. I was like, oh wait, when do I?
Yeah, sometimes I'll just leave like a little bit of just like the intro in there. I don't know why it feels like you're part of it.
It's all good.
But anyways, guys, welcome back to That's the Angle. And today I am here with Carl. But he's not just Carl. Carl's doing really epic things. So epic that he can make a group of 15 people wait out in the rain.
Yeah. By mistake.
That was a crazy morning, man.
It was. So here's the thing. I woke up and I needed to get there. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about this earlier before we came on. But Liv was not my friend this morning. Liv has been my friend.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
Liv has been my friend, but it was not my friend. And I'm in the lift, and I'm getting messages from people that are already there. The great thing about our community Walk with Locals is people show up so early, which I love. But in this instance, it kind of backfired, unfortunately. Just because it was raining, and I'm not there to stand in the rain with them. And so luckily, somebody had messaged and said, hey, there's only a small group of us here. What should we do? And so kind of going back and forth, we called an audible. And luckily,
I love that name for it, the audible.
Yeah, Omaha, or Hot Route. If any Wedding Crusher fans are out there, so we called a Hot Route and just met at National Gallery of Art. It didn't open till 11, and so it's awesome that people then diverted and went to National Gallery of Art. But super cool that they were willing to wait outside.
Dude,
until it opened at 11.
It was crazy. I got there a little early because I was like, all right, I got to be there. I got to see this whole thing from the get. Because I've been to a couple of the Walk with Local events, but I was like, all right, it's raining. Like, I had my doubts. I'm like, is anyone actually going to come to this thing? Like, how strong is this thing? So I literally waited in my car. It was like 1 o'clock, and all of a sudden, just people came out of the friggin' walls, like just nowhere. And this is a part of DC that's very government touristy, so there's no one there on Sundays and mornings. Nope. And just people come out in their umbrellas, and I'm just like, holy shit! Like I could not believe how people came out.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that. I didn't, the thing about like I don't think anybody's gonna come. That's me every walk, regardless of the weather. It could be the most beautiful day, and I go into every walk telling myself that nobody's gonna go. Mm-hmm. And I don't do that as like a negative thing towards our community, but I do that to sort of keep my expectations down. And I was telling a story earlier today, and I'm gonna butcher this, but I think it was somebody. It's a secondhand story of something they heard or read in an interview from Chris Martin of Coldplay, which is like the rarest of sources to go to. But essentially, he had this story about how they, as a band, decided when their arc starts to change and they start having smaller shows because they went from smaller shows to larger crowds, and they saw these.
They're even aware of that too.
These massive arenas, and the fact that they knew like they would go up, and then there's a certain point they're going to go down, right?
Naturally.
And so from the very beginning, they had this mindset of we can either say only 15 people showed up for our show, or wow, 15 people showed up for our show. And I was fortunate enough to hear that story very early on in building Walk with Locals, and I think that has kept me at such a level playing field of regardless of if there's 150 people or there's only 20 people or 10. I did a walk kind of off the cuff randomly when I was in Vienna, Austria last year, and one person showed up. I mean, we don't have a reach in Vienna, so there's no reason to think that. Honestly,
it's badass to even admit that.
Yeah, I genuinely think that it's super cool that we can set a date and a time that is not significant for any reason except for the days on occasions when we're celebrating anniversaries or this or that. But the fact that we can get people to then commit to doing something that we invite them to, it's tough because then we sometimes work with partners and they're like, oh, we'd love to see the same size of group. And I'm like, ooh. I can't promise you that that's going to be there. We don't collect emails. We don't trigger people with emails once a week or leading up. It's just me behind the handle, hey, invite.
There's no like business marketing on the back end, like capitalizing on it. Is there?
It's just stories and, excuse me. And so we just,
so purely Instagram driven.
Yeah. Instagram and a little bit of Twitter, excuse me.
Yeah. Dude, you gotta do it. It's crazy that it's, I love the philosophy of zero expectation. Like that is something that I try to live by myself, and it's funny that you bring a story up because, as a creative in the field, I'm sure you've gotten into, you meet some people that will try to promise you things. Oh, I'll link you with this, I'll link you with that. And the thing I've learned, like relating to that story is that I just have zero expectations from the person.
Yeah, and it's not as much as zero expectations from like the people that go to Walk with Locals and truly make it what it is. It's zero expectation in myself to think that every walk is going to be this massive thing, right? And when you post a group photo, outward looking in, people love to see that 150, 175 people
looks killer
group photo, right? It looks amazing.
Like you missed something, yeah.
But then if from one photo to the next, if there's a huge change, then there can be like what's the difference?
Oh, are they dying? Like what's going on here?
Is it starting to, again, is that arc starting to go down? And I refuse to look at the difference in our photos and instead I sort of pay attention to the fact that we have a group photo every month, like we use.
You can't lie in the photo. Like you can't just start photoshopping heads in the back. Like, we got right next to it. Like,
mainly because I don't know how to use Photoshop that well. But if I did, I might try to do.
Well, you literally have a group photo of like 50 photographers at least in the shot. So I'm sure someone could Photoshop some heads in
attention. But no, and I think that the cool thing about it is, I went back and I started applying this this hashtag to all of our group photos as like this quick kind of reference to be able to go look at it. And it's just hashtag WWLX group shot. And I look at that all the time of just sort of like, wow, like this small group when we first started, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time. And I posted that group photo from Vienna. You can go find it. You can see it of just one person. But I thought if we put something out there and we say, hey, we're going to have a walk in Vienna, and then all of a sudden we don't post a group photo, to me, that's trying to mask like what exactly is going on.
Well, also it's like brand credibility then, because just showing that you even did it and you showed up, it just shows so much like consistency and heart and like all those amazing attributes I could say. But like you showed up for that day, and whether I happened or not, it didn't. But it's like, no, we're here, we're doing it. And sometimes you take little L's.
Yeah, no, and the cool part is we recognize that. Or I recognize that for the group photo, when we post this thing, it looks awesome on social when there's a ton of people there. But if we're not as excited, we have to be as excited for every single walk as much as we are for the large ones, as sort of the smaller ones, if you would say. And the reason I say that is at the beginning of every walk, which you've seen, we separate the group between first-time people and people who have
that was a really interesting dynamic that when you have I think we should probably preface this real quick.
Yeah.
Maybe before we talk about this,
sure.
Just preface what Walk with Locals is I don't know if I should say it. Maybe you should just kind of, I feel like you said it 1,000 times. So do you want me to say it or do you want to say it?
Go ahead. Let's see if I'm doing a good enough job.
Fill in the gaps here. All right. So Walk with Locals essentially is a community meetup, as far as I know, in DC, and as far as I know, it's the biggest community meetup in DC, and perhaps I've seen on the East Coast. I could say maybe even in the United States, because I mean, I've never seen a bigger crowd or a bigger group shot or a team up of individuals. But it's not just a photography meetup. It is essentially at its core. There are a lot of photographers that go there, but it's a gathering of people who are just trying to have a good time, experience something new, meet some new people, maybe make some new connections.
And great job.
Dude.
Do you need a job?
Actually, I'll move to DC soon. I might need some passive, some part-time income, not passive because that doesn't exist, but part-time income. But that's just what I've gathered from it.
My favorite thing about your explanation is the fact that you avoided calling it an Insta-meet, because at every single turn, I've avoided using the term Insta-meets, Insta-communities.
Is it like a negative connotation or something?
It's not for the fact that it on a global scale, what Instagram has done for individuals, for groups, for communities, for cities, local business, amazing. Well, I mean, we're predominantly on Instagram.
I mean, pretty much.
But the reason I shy away from calling us an Insta-meet community is I think the moment you put that into what your explanation is, you lose a large portion of people who, I think if you put a room full of 10 people, more than likely 10 people are going to have Instagram right now.
Facts.
But not 10 people care about their Instagram, right? They use Instagram.
They're not like power users.
Right. They're not using it in a strategic sense. They're not using it as a business. It's just take a photo, throw it up, maybe put an Instagram filter, maybe not, right? And I think that at the time when Walk with Locals started, there was photo communities. We weren't the first. But for me, there was nothing that existed in that capacity of being something that could be for just your random sort of user of Instagram, but more so your very passionate person of wanting to explore their city, get out and meet people, find a community. And so I've shied away from using that term because I want people who just want to make new friends. They just moved to DC. They want to experience something. They want to see the city from a different perspective, or they want to use it as a place to maybe make friends or learn how to use their camera. They just bought a camera and they see that there's a group of photographers going. I think when you put Insta into your things,
it's assumed that it's like visual, picture driven.
Visual, and you have to be there with the purpose of like creating content to go up on Instagram.
That's
versus
so true.
Just, and so,
that's a really interesting fact you bring that up, because just walking about through the meetup today, I feel like I was like some journalistic reporter, like gathering info, and something that came up, and, I've been to a lot of these other meetups or Insta meets or photo walks or whatever. And someone said this point today, and they were like, the thing I like with Walk with Locals is that it feels like there's no pressure. Like it feels like it's not just, meet up and get to work. And, I don't want to name any other,
sure.
meetups and trying to like talk shit or anything, but, photo meetups are, it ends up being this thing where it's 30 photographers and like one model.
Sure. And
it's just a pure like 30 shots of the same person, complete content drive. And it feels very like going to work. Like the guy said, like, let's go to work. Let's get the shot. We got it. This is sick. That's epic. Oh, this is the angle. Like do this pose. Like, oh, it's epic sick, but like you're saying, like your idea was, you're saying it was derived from not being that.
Yeah, I simply just wanted to I wanted to see something exist that I could be a part of. At the time, I couldn't make it to any other meet. Some of the meets that existed just weren't really up my alley. If I'm gonna photograph with one person, I want to just photograph with them. I want to go meet them and go hang out and kind of flow naturally. But I think if you go to Insta meets and what you see, if you've been to any in the past, and this happens at Walk with Locals, we're not immune to it, but I try to shy away from it, and I try not to advocate for it. Is like one person will go stand in front of a wall or stand on a ledge or something, and you're like, you're crafting this photo, and then all of a sudden, like you turn around and there's like 15 other people.
Oh my gosh!
Photo, right? And,
yeah.
And I think that I understand that capacity works if you go, like we've been to Georgetown and we go to the cliff, and like you can't be the only person that photographs shooting across the river, right? But when you put some sort of like effort into creating and framing a shot, I think the last thing you want as an individual is to see other people benefit off of your, even if it is just 2 or 3 minutes of crafting a frame, right? Then
it's so big. It's so facts, man.
Right. And so I shy away from trying to advocate for that. And at times I've even been just upfront as to say, like, hey, if you see somebody taking a photo or crafting a photo, try not to get in their way, try not to kind of piggyback off what they're doing, let them kind of, just create on their own, and then go from there. Or definitely like learn from them and ask them like, hey, how did you frame this shot? Or what were you seeing? What, where should I look? And use that as a stepping stone to then try to learn from that person who crafted that shot.
As opposed to being like paparazzi
and we've all seen the like photo of like the trash can tipped over with trash coming out of it, and just 15, 30 photographers standing next to taking the photo, and it's like, what are we doing? And so taking that sort of pillar and saying this is an Insta Meet community, I think really helps us and gives our community the understanding that we're not there just for your photos to go up on Instagram. When we work with brands, it used to be really hard to convince them and to get them to understand, like, we're bringing 130 people to your location, but you may not see 130 photos because
it's not a photo. It's not photo driven.
People post their photos. Sometimes I don't even post photos from walks. I'll post a lot of stuff in my stories, but very rarely do things go from the walks to Instagram. And if I'm the founder of it, I should sort of be setting the example. And that's the example.
That is true. Yeah. I've never seen you once. I've only been to 3. 3 at this point. No. Yeah, 3, 4 at this point, and you're never taking pictures. You're always just engaging people and introducing people and like just having great conversations with people.
I think that's my most important thing to do at our walks is again, so when we separate the group of first time and repeat people who have attended, and we ask them to kind of look across the aisle and see who is who and shake the hands and say hello to somebody, we ask people not to introduce themselves by their social media handle.
Do you ever feel like being like, start them on?
Red Rover.
Yeah.
And the reason we do that is two. One, I want people on the left side, or the metaphorical left side, to say, you know, look, these people were you as well once, right? Like they took that step to kind of put themselves out there, go to something that they had never been to, go with a friend, whatever the case may be. You're not alone in your journey to like go out and start meeting people.
Yeah, because right? It's an awkward feeling, like being a stranger in a group that can start to feel cliquey or something. Like, oh, all these people clearly know each other. They've all been to 10 other meetups.
Yep.
I know no one. Like, oh, I don't know if I belong here. But then
100%.
I think that action alone is very powerful, and I've never seen that in another street meet. It's cool.
And the second reason why I do it is it gives me an idea of like, okay, who, not that I don't need to say hello to the people to the right, but more than likely, if I've done my responsibility correctly, I've said hello to them at a previous point. I want to say hello to these people, these 9 people, 7 people, however many people it may be. I want to make sure I say hello to them and get them to understand, not make them understand, but just kind of let them understand that we're here for this very reason, for people that are looking for something new. I talk about this all the time, that Walk with Locals it works, I think, so well because people quickly understand that I just want this thing to be a starting line for people to understand that there's a whole world outside of the bubble that they live in. And so regardless of if they show up today and they sort of start their race with us and they make one friend, they never come back to Walk with Locals, but their journey as either a photographer or the belief in themselves to kind of put themselves out there and learn their city, that's fine with me. I could care less if they finish a race with us. I just want them to know that we're a starting line for them to go out and meet new people.
Like, what's also interesting is that for people who don't know out there, it's also about 3 years old.
Yeah, we're March 19th next year, we will turn 3.
And that's a long time for anyone to do anything, let alone organize groups of people and go on walks. But it feels very altruistic. Yeah. Are you religious? I'm just curious.
I am. And one of the things that we often talk about too is, you know, when in the timeline that Walk with Locals has kind of been around, things have been really divisive, and we don't want to go off on a mega tangent.
Yeah.
Stick around for part 2.
No, I'm wondering where it comes from, because you talk about it in such a way that it's like so not connected to you. And I mean, you did mention brand deals, which I'm sure, why not? If it comes with it, right? It doesn't hurt. I mean, it might not get a little bit for what you're doing, but was Walk with Locals made with like that in mind, or was it just purely this I want to help people thing?
No, it existed to, again, the basis was I wanted something that I could be a part of.
So it was just merely for like yourself.
Myself, in the sense that like I was like, man, so the first walk where we weren't even Walk with Locals, and I pitched this idea to a couple buddies and then a group to host a photo walk. I just wanted to get out. I was new to photography. I wanted to get out and just my whole thing, before Walk with Locals, I still here in DC have a project called the Fit District, where we would do like fitness pop-ups all over the city. And then, you know, my whole thing is just like everyone should know everyone. I've kind of lived by this mindset. And so the first one was just sort of like, hey, I want to like get people out with me. And people showed up that I didn't even know. So in my mind, I'm like, how is this happening? You know?
And it was through Instagram then too.
Through Instagram, yep. And so about a month or about 2 weeks after that, then we hosted a bigger one, or no, excuse me. I hosted this one, and then a month and a week later, 5 weeks later, hosted the first walk under the name of Walk with Locals. And it all stemmed from that one mini walk, and then asking people to tag their photos with hashtag Walk with Locals, which I just kind of blurted out there. And then later that night,
great brand name too.
Yeah, I realized the tag had never been used. The handle was empty on Twitter and
Jesus, that's
Instagram.
Lucky.
So I literally just kind of hit this stride right at the very beginning.
So it was that place of like, new to DC. Where'd you come from, by the way, before you were DC?
Oh man, before DC, I had a loft apartment in Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh, you say loft apartment sounds so nice.
I say that because you can very rarely find lofts here in DC, and I'm not going to say the price of that loft apartment because I think it'll just make me sad, and anybody who's living here in DC will also get sad.
It was probably like $500 or $600. It was like stupid cheap, probably even less.
It was. Yeah,
it was dirt cheap. It was like the
price. At the time, I remember being like, "Why am I paying this much money?" And now I'm like, "Man, I wish I could pay that much money."
The perspective is so crazy.
Yeah, but the just before we lose that topic, one of the main things and the biggest reasons I talk about crowd size and group size is today there was about 11 or 12 people that were there for the first time, and if we lose interest because our group's not as large as the one before that, that day is so important to those 12 people who took the risk to join us. If we're not excited, then what's their motivation to come back, right? If we're not as excited to see them as they are to come, and they're taking a leap of faith to join us, then we're doing a disservice, right? If the only thing that we're worried about is how that group photo looks to the outside of our community, we're not paying attention to the people that are making our community what it is. We've been around for almost 3 years, and the fact that we've been able to sustain and sometimes go through periods of excellent growth in our gatherings. We used to do things like 2-3 times a month. Sometimes there was a couple months where we did an event every week. That's nowhere near sustainable now. I'm a married guy. I've got an amazing wife.
Was that before that you were married and everything?
This was very much before I was married.
It seems like you were like trying to grow it into something that maybe is what it is now, but at that time maybe it was like 2-3 times a month. That means you're trying to build like a big brand or something.
Yeah, I think, when it started, I didn't quite know where it was going to go. And I was just thinking about this the other day. When we first started and I'm doing these things, that was completely driven by the fact that, I'm getting messages 2-3 times a week like, "Oh, are you guys having something this weekend?" And I'm like, "No, but should we? Like, let's do it." Right. And it was probably not the most responsible way to grow. It was probably not the best way, to kind of engage with the community. But at the end of the day, I think it helped us. And I think, it formed a really strong foundation for us. And now my goal is to worry less about how many we have and focus more so on how good each month can be. And I was thinking about how prior to maybe this year, I used to feel like when I'd get stopped either, or if I'd see friends out in public and they'd be like, "Yo, man, what's up with Walk with Locals?" or "What's next?" I felt like for the longest time I had to have an answer to that. And so in my mind, I'm like constantly thinking.
Because in a weird way, it's you do this thing so publicly that if you just let it shit the bed, that it comes on you in a way. It's just like, this is Carl's thing. Like if someone's like, "Where's the next Walk with Locals?" and it's like, "Oh, it's been like 3 months."
Yeah.
Shit.
What's Carl been doing? Yeah.
But at the same time, everyone grows and evolves.
Yeah.
But you said something interesting today, which was like you want other people to do it.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
So January, we're going to take the month off. We've never taken a single month off since we started. We're going to take the month off for the holidays. And then February, March, and April, guest hosts. And I think this will be really important for a multitude of reasons. But I think the coolest thing about it it will give people a chance to kind of show the city from their perspective. And this could, I think, lead to people like month by month kind of working with me and planning walks with me. These ones, I'm going to let them plan. I want them to plan. I don't want it to be...
You're not worried about your brand or anything like that? Like
no, and I think that's the cool part too, is that we're at a space where we're making no money, right? Like Walk with Locals, the joke, is a nonprofit. We make no money from it.
Could you though?
I think if we could, or if we did, I don't know where it would come from, because I think an important thing for us is that we've remained free, right? Like our monthly meetups are free. Could we transition to having like these one-off ticketed events from time to time? Possibly. But would that translate, right? Like, would you still get 100 people in the door if you're talking like if it was like the Walk with Locals bar crawl?
I
mean, like we've had talks for people to host like panels or discussions, and it's hard to find space get people to then sign on to do the talks, get people to do the audio and all that stuff, and just completely say, oh, by the way, this is free.
It just seems like such a natural progression for someone who is able to gather people, make an organization, and create a brand. It just seems like a natural sort of progression in a way.
So I think there may be a space or a capacity for things like that down the road, but for February, March, and April, I think the coolest part will just be like, send us an email, figure out what you want to do, where you want to go, and the thing that I will have to do a good job of is just letting that person feel, or not letting them feel, but make them very aware that this is for them, right? Like this is their chance to do something, show the city from their perspective.
That's interesting.
And instead of being like, okay, you express interest in wanting to host a walk, here's what you're going to do, right?
Oh,
so instead of making it like, here's what you're doing for us, what are we doing with you?
What can you bring to it that's going to make this more interesting or level it up?
So we've got the perspectives of doing a night walk at some point later in the year, because the first couple months of the year will be obviously pretty cold.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot of night photographers and early morning photographers, and those are things that I wouldn't necessarily reach for because that's something that I'm just not very good at. And so I think for me, trying to then encourage people to come out and say, join us at 11 o'clock at night to shoot under the stars, it'd be like, well, I can't actually help you when you come. So having people that do that, and do that well, I think will be a great
instead of being like shoot under the stars, it's like walk with locals under the stars, as opposed to shoot under the stars.
Walk with the stars. Where's Coldplay will be in the background.
Where's the walk with locals singles meetup, bro? The last thing before this I went to, you gave this incredibly epic speech, and you said that I was going to find my wife there.
So there,
I'm still single, Carl. What the fuck?
I'm sorry. We're working on it. So what Bruce is talking about is I share this story about, I said hello to a guy at a coffee shop when I first moved to DC. We're friends. He's like one of my first friends. And then I'm out of DC. I come back to DC. I'm in Georgetown at Baked and Wired, where he worked at the time. And I just bought a bunch of dress shirts, and he's like, hey, you should check out these guys in Georgetown called Hue and Cry. I went to them, bought some shirts, went right back to J. Crew to return the shirts I just bought. 6 months later, this is in 2013, 7 months later, I actually joined those guys. I left my career and joined them and worked for them for about a year. But in the interim, about 4 months after I joined them, I put together this kind of tour around the city, this happy hour. We called it the menswear tour. And at one of the events, I got introduced to a girl, and I married her 4 years and
the
4 days
menswear
later.
Tour. I mean, if you're a female and you see the menswear tour, Jesus, I'm going to make sure I walk across their path too.
So I often, the way I relate that is like, in early 2012, when I first moved to the area, I said just hello to a random guy because he was wearing a Cardinals hat, and that hello led to him telling me about something else.
It's like the chain of events, like the catalyst for this and the catalyst for that.
Yeah, and then I joke because I say like, if you say hello to somebody, and I'm not promising that you're going to meet them and marry them, but on that note, we do have two active couples of people that have met with locals. So.
Hey,
just saying,
matchmaker Carl over here. Dang.
Get at us, Bumble. Is that one of the things, Bumble?
Yeah,
right?
Bumble,
okay.
Bumble and Tinder. Tinder's like the more like just meet up and hook up. Bumble's more the like I'm looking for love.
Okay.
So which one are you going for? Which one is it?
I'm obviously.
Well, not you, but I mean like if it's like Bumble or Tinder, walk with locals.
Oh, I don't know. Bumble has the like Bumble Friends thing, right? Like they just did the thing at the line where it's like Bumble best friend.
I'm way too savage for that. I'm just like on Tinder. Like
I think from my perspective, outside the app. Looking in, I think Bumble is like really about like strong relationship.
That's the way it seems to me, at least in this like singles dating world. Like Bumble's like I'm looking for it.
Who knows? I'm out that game.
Yeah, I know. Carl's a married man, lady. Sorry, you cannot meet him. Boom, there it is.
But yeah, so the idea is, like we just want people to meet people, and I think we're doing an okay job of it so far.
It's cool. Yeah. I feel like I do meet a lot of shy people at these events. I don't know if that's a good way to put it, but people that would naturally be less inclined to say hello. I feel like there's some sort of thing about walk with locals that seems very approachable to people that are more shy. And sometimes those are photographers, I would think more than likely, because that is a very behind the scenes sort of gig. But I realize in just talking with a lot of people that there are very majority of people are just very shy people in general.
Yeah.
But they just kind of open up and they just kind of become this person who's just like, yo, what's up, man? Hey,
honestly, I've been very, very lucky to see that, that progression in people who their first walk, they're like, one more time, what would you say? To now, like, what's up, Carl? And to see that change in people and to see that growth in people, I think is better than any photo growth that I can see from them. Because at the time when Walk with Local started, and even now today, I've been in so many sort of rooms and at tables, if you will, metaphorical tables, that for some reason there's this mindset that like other people think they're more important than you.
Welcome
right?
to DC, man.
Right. And there's no reason that should ever be the case at a community meetup, right? There's nothing that makes
like this isn't high school. Yeah,
there's nothing that makes any individual that comes to a walk any more important than anybody else, right? And so I truly try to live that example by people come up and they'll say like, oh, what's your Instagram? And again, at the beginning of every walk, we ask people not to introduce themselves by their social media handles because that's not like who we are. That's just what we happen to have. Mm-hmm. And again, for the people that are not avid Instagram users, they're gonna be like, I guess. I mean, it's just.
But how else would they have found out about it?
Right, exactly. And so they're on Instagram, but you don't need to introduce yourself by an Instagram account at the time. And we always ask like,
so are you anti-social media?
I'm not anti-social media, but I'm anti, I just want people to feel, and I'll give you an example. But
yeah.
When I went to my first sort of Insta meet and I kind of stepped out there, somebody introduced themselves to me and they said, what's your name? And I said, Carl. And they kind of were like,
like they're like trying to type it in like at Carl.
And I was like,
if you had that, by the way, that'd be badass. At Carl.
The person who does have it doesn't even post, so I'm not worried about it at this point.
You know, he probably made it when it first came out. Like, I'm just gonna get this.
True. Isn't that weird though? That like when these things first happen, we didn't really think anything of them, and now we're like, man, that would have been so great if we got that first. But it's cool. Carl Maynard works.
I literally just had like a flashback memory when I was like 12 on dial-up internet. Like I didn't even know how to buy a domain name.
247.
Yeah. I legit wish I would have just sat there and been like Bruce.com, Carl.com,
yeah, exactly.
like shoesandpants.com. Like,
I think that I think it's WWE that has like WWE.com, WWE.org, like they own, like you could never. Like any combination of WWE website.
They own it all.
They own it all.
God.
But yeah, so I said, I'm just Carl Nard. And they said, oh, cool. And they pulled up my profile in front of me. And they said, oh, 900, cool. And locked their phone and just kind of walked away.
Whoa,
they say 900.
They judge you straight by your number, just like that.
This was my very first thing, right? And again.
Like photography meetup?
It was, yeah. And I was like, that was kind of weird.
That kind of hurt my feelings. Like shit.
That was a weird way to introduce yourself. And again, I tell that story. I didn't like go home and
your clout level was not high, Carl.
Throw like a canvas painting together and be like, I'm going to start a revolution. But I've experienced those moments in my own life, and so I do my very best to make sure that other people don't have that experience. So again, that's me trying to talk to every single person.
That can be a very like demeaning thing to do.
Oh yeah,
like,
and I'm pretty outgoing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty outgoing. I've never had any trouble talking in a room, and I find myself trying to be that example to others of like, you know. If this guy's talking, this guy's having a good time, like we should have a good time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or he walked in and we're a room full of people that don't know each other. There's no reason we can't talk to each other, right? Like, I think at some point, like we start off as kids in the playground and just being like, nobody cares what you look like. Nobody cares what you're wearing. Like you just played with each other. You just like picked five aside, played soccer, basketball, swings, whatever the case may be. But at some point we get to the point in our life where we forget to just like talk to people, right? And again, we grow up and say like, don't talk to strangers, but like that's never going to be me. Like I just, any room that I go into, like I'm the guy that's talking in the elevator. Again, I'm very aware that people hate guys like me,
You're great at talking. I don't have to do shit for this podcast. I'm just like, I can just ask a question. You're just, woo.
When I was 7, and so when people come and they're like, oh, what's your Instagram? I'm very aware that they're asking me for mine, but Walk with Locals doesn't exist for me. It's not there for me to build my personal cloud. It's not, you can go back
20K. It's the cloud level's pretty high, Carl. Now.
You can go there. You can go to the entire beginning of the feed and you won't see my handle tagged on a photo. It got tagged
that's true.
once on the very first day.
There's no cross promo there.
And it got taken down right away once I saw it because there was like a couple people that had handles or that had control of the account with me at the time, and it got taken down. I think that photo actually got taken down, but it's not there. And when I put up videos or if I put a link to this, like it's never just, hey, our founder Carl, did this. It's just, hey, we, right? Like there's this collective we, because I feel like I'm speaking for our community.
But when you say we, is it just you?
It's just me.
It's literally you doing all this stuff.
It's just me, but I use the collective we because I genuinely, Walk with Locals doesn't exist if 35 people, 45 people don't show up in the rain, right? Like the moment people stop showing up, Walk with Locals
stops. It was like 45 people today, right?
It was about 45, 50. I'll have to go back and count the noggins in the photo or add some. Don't worry about it.
We're just guessing.
We'll talk offline.
Random question though, Carl. Were you ever into hardcore music?
Actually, I was. And
I knew it.
I was, still am. But I want to caveat that because
do you have a straight edge tattoo?
I don't have a straight edge tattoo, but I still listen to it. But I'm afraid that if I say something, somebody might be like, "That's not hardcore enough, bro." But
God.
I grew up, right? So I grew up listening to, man. If I say that, are you gonna? You're not gonna judge me if I say
no, no, dude.
So I would say post-hardcore.
I
post hardcore.
Yeah,
okay,
I love that.
So
shit
I
too.
grew up brand new Hawthorne Heights, right? Thursday. Coheed and Cambria.
We're probably at the same shows.
I have a photo. Yeah, I have a photo of me and a guy named Sonny Moore. And if I say that name,
Sonny from first to last,
exactly, Skrillex. And I say that, and people go, "He was in a rock band." And I'm
people
like,
do not know that.
And he had jet black hair, pink hair sometimes, and a lot of pink eyeshadow. I grew up on that stuff. But what was really funny is then I joined the military, and I was like still doing that, and it was like very like, like go to a rock show on Friday, but then like go to work and be in the military on Monday, and it was a very weird time in my life.
It's like go to the rock show with your tee and your backpack on.
Oh
like
yeah,
mosh.
Oh dude, my drawer was all black band tees, and I went through a phase where I
swear I don't know how. I swear I could just
them.
see it. Like you just look like that guy who was moshing like way harder than I was.
Oh yeah, I was in there. I was for sure in there. I still have a scar on the inside of my lip from crowd surfing at a Thursday and Coheed and Cambria show at a place called Pops Nightclub. It's in Sauget, Illinois. It's right across the river from St. Louis.
Is that where you grew up, that Midwest area?
I lived in the Midwest for a few years. I moved to Illinois right after my freshman year of high school. In fact, we were moving from Washington State to Illinois during 9/11. And then I was there until about halfway through my senior year. My dad was in the military, so he got orders to Delaware. And when you're like 17, you can't really tell your dad not to take orders so you can graduate high school. So I moved to Delaware, spent some time there as a senior, but then the two schools convened and they were like, hey, you'll graduate from this school, but you have to finish your credits from the school that you're at. So yeah, my high school diploma is like kind of shaky.
Well,
and
I was saying because
I never want to get famous because somebody's going to look it up and be like, he doesn't even graduate.
Does he have his GED?
Yeah.
You need a GED to have Instagram following, Carl. Well, I was gonna say because like hardcore is such an iconic thing of like, I feel like the Midwest, I remember in that time I'd look to them and they like Ohio and all those places were having the best shows.
Yeah. Story of the Year used to be a band called Big Blue Monkey, and then they won a radio show contest called like 105.7 The Edge, and I want to say it's Dave Friedman. He produced the Used, like kind of classic debut record. Oh, that's his name. I can't remember, but he like heard them, went to St. Louis, or they like all went out to LA, re-recorded a lot of their music, brand new music. They released Page Avenue, which has Until the Day I Die. But they came back out under the moniker Story of the Year.
I love all those bands like Silverstein, Thursday, Brand New, I
saw My Chemical Romance before 3 Cheers to Sweet Revenge. They had like
before they sold out.
They opened for it was them, The Movie Life, and it was them, The Movie Life, Finch, and The Used.
Oh my God.
They played at a venue in St. Louis that's no longer there called Mississippi Nights.
Jesus, what a legendary show.
Yeah,
Holy
it was
shit.
awesome. And in fact, I think on my phone right now is still 3 Cheers to Sweet Revenge, or 3 Cheers. Is that what it's called? 3 Cheers to Sweet Revenge?
That's classic, dude. Literally
such a great workout.
Literally, before all those bands blew up, I remember I was in high school. We would metro into DC from Springfield, go to the 930 Club, go to the Rock and Roll Hotel. I remember I'd see bands like Devil Wears Prada, literally this close to them at the Rock and Roll Hotel. Like I remember seeing them, and I was like, oh my God, these guys are going to be so fucking big. And I just remember that moment. I was like, I'm never going to get this chance again. Like
the funniest part about me for listening to this music now is I will I go to a venue, I go to 930 Club, straight to the top, straight to the balcony. Nobody's pushing me. Nobody's hitting me.
You want to get triggered?
I don't want to like be 15 again. I don't want to wake up the next day bruised. But then the funniest thing is when I was listening to those bands, like sort of in their prime, that's kind of disrespectful. In maybe my like early days,
on the top of that arc,
the furthest thing from going to the gym. Like I'm not working out, I'm not doing any of this, and now I'm like, man, this is great workout music. Like I should have been in the gym with these guys.
Yeah, Ground Motion's great.
But there's nothing like treadmill into Deja Tindu. It's a great. It's so good.
Let's play drum chords.
Luckily, my wife is also like kind of a child of that music as well. So, like. If we have kids, like they're gonna like our classic, like the music that I grew up on.
Those are our classics.
Yeah.
Why are they screaming?
Why are they screaming? This is a classic.
So are you all tatted up? Because I kind of see like poking out. Is that from that era, or is that like recent stuff?
This is pretty much recent. It's actually a lot of post-military.
Word.
In fact, there's a very tiny reference to a band called Chiodos. Did you remember?
Bro, my, they were the kings of emo.
When I started my sleeve, their All's Well That Ends Well album was still very prevalent.
That was the best album ever in hardcore.
So if I were to like be in a tank top, just casually in here in a tank top, you would see like the cover art to that album is here. Not because it's my favorite album, but because it fit the mold of what I wanted to do. And I was just in St. Louis for the past 2 weeks, and there's a tiny spot on the inside of my arm at about this big that I really wanted to finish, and I didn't want anybody else to finish it other than the guy that started it. And I was living in St. Louis when I started, so he like just finished it, and then he went back over and like did a bunch of the orange as well. So yeah.
Wow.
Right arm's down.
I love that you have a Chiodo reference. Holy shit. That has to be the quintessential band of that era.
It
Craig Owens and all that.
Owens. I think he went solo, and then he started Cinematic Sunrise as well.
Yeah.
Man, my post-hardcore knowledge is so depth.
It's
I didn't
good.
realize this.
This is really good. Like,
so proud of
I forgot about Cinematic Sunrise. That was really good. Holy shit.
Yeah. I think for me, it's just kind of funny because that was like the sound of early 2000s, and I could tell you nothing about newer bands that come out. I think some newer bands like who's kind of new,
the whole sound.
Emarosa is like kind of a newer band that I think has survived.
Sound has gone so like electronic now. Like now the breakdowns are like dubstep inspired.
Sure. Yeah, I think, and I actually really like that about music lately is that there is a ton of crossover. It's hard to find a band that's just like, we are this, right? Yeah.
That was some of the earliest. Those like big, heavy bass drops. Yeah. Remember those? Into the breakdowns?
I think, isn't that the way that Dear Diary, my teen angst, from First Select, the first one that Sonny Moore was on, the first song was like, doom, 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 doom.
I wouldn't be surprised if he started that. He's quite the pioneer.
We have lost them, by the way, there.
No, because I have not lost them because I'm literally about to tie this back in.
Okay.
I've got this. Ready? You being this like the hardcore kid who probably mashed a few skulls. Now.
Sorry, by the way, if I did.
Yeah, it probably happened. Now. Boom! You're doing all this really nice shit and giving back to people instead of moshing and messing and fucking kids up.
Yeah.
You're helping them be better people. Look, dude, it came full circle.
It did. I never thought
that's
about
what
that
it was.
way.
Like when you split the crowd, I was like, whoa! I was like, this man split a crowd. Or he's been part of this stuff before. I was like, I don't know how I got that like sort of intuition, but like,
no, that's
a
great way to put it. You know, I think I 10, 15 years ago, there's no way I'm starting a photo community, right? Like there's photography wasn't what I was doing. I didn't get my camera until 3 years ago this month, right? So I wasn't in that world. But what I've always cared about, if you go back to the very root of kind of my upbringing, I've told this story many times. I was at a barbecue with my dad. My dad was very involved in the military base community. That any base that we were on, he was very involved.
All the functions, all the
functions, community projects, cookouts. And one of the biggest projects he took on was the summer barbecue, a big festival. It was kind of revolved around like a summer baseball or softball tournament. And there's this like moment, and if I was on a map, I could go and point out almost exactly where we are. I remember it that vividly.
Whoa.
Of just him kind of like passing a few people and being like, you know, how can I help? Can I help you? Are you good? Can I help with anything? And again, he's the guy that's like, he's the point guy. He's the guy that's supposed to have all the logistics and understand where he's put everybody else to kind of cover the bases. And he's asking all these people if he can help. And I just remember being like, why are you asking them if you can help? Like,
you're just like observing this.
Won't they let you know, you know? And I asked him in some roundabout way, like, why do you keep asking if you can help? And he just told me, you know, you should never get to the point where people need to ask you for help. They should always know that you're available to help, right? And I tell that story, but then I definitely remember being like, okay, I want to go to the pool and skateboard with my friends, right? Like, I didn't care about it then, but the older I get, that story remains very close to me because I realized that at the core of who I am, I've always cared about other people meeting people, right? And I shared the other day, like, when everything's all said and done, or when Walk with Local is wrapped up, I truly hope that I've helped more than I've been helped. I don't know why I waited so long, but 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, I read How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, word. I've heard a lot about that book.
If nobody has read that book, or if you haven't read that book, I cannot stress it enough. And I was asked...
How to Win Friends, Influence People.
And the book was written 70 years ago or so.
So it's not a book about like how to diabolically control people.
It talks about like printing presses and warehouse and log cabins and a bunch of different stuff. But at the core, it's essentially just trying. The biggest takeaway I got from it is that like there is value that can be added when you take a step back or you put yourself second, right? And so this is the case of, you know, how can we help this local business grow? Well, we don't have an operating budget. That's okay. Right? Just show up for us on this day and we'll go from there. There's so many entities that are constantly grabbing for this or for that or for free things. And we do this now often where I tell people at Walk with Locals and partners that we have, like, if we come to your coffee shop, we don't need anything. We'll pay for what our people want, right? Like,
word.
Don't give us your coffee. You can give us a discount if you'd like, but it's not required. We're still going to show up. And because I think supporting local, you can't say, I support local. Can I get that for free?
Yeah.
Right? I'll put it on my Instagram.
Or can you slide us 500 for getting you all the ads on Instagram?
And so I just think like there's value to be added in doing things from a genuine perspective. And
so I'm curious, what is this book? How was that book influential?
Just how I said, like,
it teaches you how to put the like giving instead of taking first. Always putting the.
It's hard to explain one specific because each chapter is kind of about a different subject or a different story, and the writer tells the stories that other people have shared with him and how, you know, a guy was going to lose the business of another store that was outside of his state. And so instead of trying to call him, he got in his car and drove overnight to meet that business owner when he opened a shop the next morning and explain to him or understand exactly why it is that guy was going to take his business away from him, right? And then making that extra step and going that extra mile, literally, to then try to understand exactly what the people that you're working with need from you and how you can help them. Granted, it may mean less money for that person, but if it's going to help them, it helps that person. It also helps them because they're keeping their business. They just have to sacrifice a little bit.
I think most people want to help other people. I don't like in that referential story. The other guy doesn't want to destroy your business.
Sure,
he may not even see what's going on, but just by letting them know, being that person, being the bigger person. Yo, what can I do for you?
It's an amazing book. I when I read it, I was introduced to it by a guy that I was traveling with, and he said, anytime he goes to take a new gig or he goes to start a new job, he reads it really close to the time that he goes into that new environment because he wants that fresh perspective and that fresh mindset. And I ordered the book shortly after that and read it, blazed through it, loved it, and I'll definitely pick it up.
It's interesting because it really seems to me like if you wanted to go that way with Walk with Locals, it could be a money machine.
Sure. And I think about that and I think about how, right? And I've been to events where it's so-and-so presents photo community. Mm-hmm. And I think about the way that looks, right? And when we do our flyers, a majority of the time, if there's multiple partners, we'll kind of scatter them in a line. But if it's just us and say Sweetgreen, who we've been very lucky to work with multiple times. Their name is level with us on the flyer because we're equal partners in it, right? And so the idea of then taking a higher brand. I use this reference of Coca-Cola for some reason. I don't know why, but because they're mega.
But
and they got billions.
Walmart a brand.
If Coca-Cola said, "Hey, we want to host a walk with you, and at the end of the walk, we're going to have like a Coca-Cola station with all our different varieties," right? If all of a sudden we put them above our name, it's no longer a level. It's no longer a partnership. It's an ownership that they have over us, right? And so if we get to the point where Coca-Cola recognizes, again, we're not going to work with Coca-Cola. If we get to the point where Coca-Cola then says like, okay, like we recognize your value, we're on the same line, then it's a partnership.
Yeah, because you don't want them coming in being like, here's 10K,
Yep.
we're taking control of this shit, and
again,
it's no longer
think,
what it is. And then everything you've worked for is just
100%.
And everyone else is going to feel like, wow, Carl really sold out.
We have been very, very lucky to work with amazing partners. We've worked with locally here. We've worked with Sweetgreen. We've worked with Arctic House, which I think we were talking about earlier today with a few people. We've worked with a bake joint and Baked and Wired. A bake joint was the first place our community ever went to after walk, and they've just been incredibly supportive of us. And then sort of, I don't say globally, but on a nationwide scale, we've worked with Everlane, we've worked with Allbirds, and just now coming into the mix, we're working with a new company called Hill City, and they're a menswear line.
So was it ever a thought to? I mean, at least it seems like it to me before your marriage life stuff, to make this like the main thing, like the full-time thing you did.
I think there was a lot of idea that maybe I would, but once I realized that we can work with these partners and the relationships that we've had is with Sweetgreen, we often eat Sweetgreen, obviously. With like great. Everlane and Allbirds, they would send us either backpacks and Allbirds would send us shoes, and we just give them to members of our community.
Oh, word.
We find out like their sizes. We don't tell. I think people have caught on to at this point, but Allbirds would just say, hey, find out a few sizes and we'll send them to you, and then you can give them to us. They've never said post this many photos, post this many things. So we've run one ad on our page ever, and that's with a local business, Custom Ink. And then they ended up creating a shirt for our giveaway. Like we turned a promotion into a partnership, into a friendship. And then now with Hill City, when you're in these negotiations, it seems like you're just trying to give back. You're not like, okay, give me $5K for this privilege. Yeah, exactly. So Hill City just sent a bunch of clothes, and I sent them some names of some individuals, and they sent those guys clothes, right? And then it was never, okay, they must do this. They have to do this. They have to do this. And I never want to get to the part. Stories and tag. All right, guys, everyone tag Hill City. Like. Yeah, and I think they just got, and our partnership is new, and it'll come out soon, but they, from the very beginning as well, I think just understood us, right? And I think having the examples and the models that we've had, and the fortunate, we've been very fortunate to have these partnerships where people just get that from the very beginning. And again, having the chance to like send them a link to our group photos, send them a link to our stories, and show them exactly what we're about. It's a breath of fresh air, probably. We got to work with Kodak earlier this year, which also then there's a group here in DC, if you're into film, called 202 Film Collective, Steven and Roger. Those guys met at Walk with Locals and then started their own community. And I'm so happy about that. I love that. And so we finally found a way to kind of work together. And the coolest part about it was being able to introduce so many people that are just kind of like avid photo taker or kind of random or sporadic photo takers, and show them like, hey, there's a film community if you want to get into that as well, right? And they get the one we approved numbers. Yeah, they get 20, 30 people at a walk. And I've seen that growing too. Yeah, and they do an amazing job. And Steven has turned me into an okay film photographer. I'm not going to say I'm great, but he's been so helpful with my own film journey. And then I did a piece with Moment, who we've gotten to work with a couple times. And it seems like you've just partnered with so many people, and like over the course of 3 years, like you've partnered with so many brands, so many different communities, all without being driven by the like monetary value. Yep. And I think that's why they work, and I think that's why they translate well to our community. So we did this thing with Moment, and then this guy named Steve Carter, who works at Kodak, saw it, loved it, wrote us, and I replied to him right away. And this was we'd been friends now for a few months, and actually I think over a year, but we've been friends for some time now, and we got together with 202, and I reached out to Steve and I said, hey, if you want to come down, we're going to do this walk. And he came down and he brought more film. I didn't actually quite at the time understand how much film he brought down, because I just was like, oh, film is film.
Yeah,
and then the guys who were really avid into film were kind of like, yo, he brought so much.
The guy
film,
from
right?
Kodak,
Yeah,
he brought like all the expensive $20 portrait
so
rolls.
It was amazing. But the fact that like, and then again, we worked with Compass Coffee on that, right? So we all went to Compass Coffee, and just kind of got to be one community.
Do you get like a lot of people sort of in your ear kind of being like, yo, you should do this, you should do that?
I think before I say anything on that, yes, we do. And sometimes I don't quite, I'm trying to think how to say this. We do get that.
It's a dictatorship now.
No, great idea, but no. We get that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I think what ends up happening is the moment they share that, I'm very engaged with their ideas, right? I want to hear their ideas. We've done walks based on some things that other people have suggested. But one of the things that we often hear is like, oh, you should do a historical walk through X, Y, and Z, right? And the tough part about that is we've done one such case. We partnered with the Hirshhorn and Brutalist DC, and they had like a microphone, and they were speaking to like the architecture of the Hirshhorn.
Whoa.
And that's kind of self-contained. Hirshhorn kind of owns that space and has the capacity to do that. We can't.
And that's like an event almost.
Yeah,
at that
we
point.
we can't expect 100 people to show up and then sort of hurtle around by every building and say like, this is this, this is this. And so that may not be of interest to people, but again, that's those avenues of those like splinter walks that we could possibly do.
If there was a walk with locals party, I would be there, dude. That would be so goddamn cool.
So one of the things that we've, do you know what Daybreaker is?
Daybreaker.
They host the like sunrise dance parties. They're
Ooh,
like, there's
dang.
no alcohol. And
damn.
sometimes they do like, sometimes they'll have music, but then I think they did a silent one recently. Or maybe
Is it like a burn thing, like a burner community thing?
like Burning Man?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. I mean, they don't like bring food or anything.
No,
but,
I meant the bong rippers. No, no Burning Man.
It's all dancing, and they start like at sunrise, and they've done it all over the city. It's actually, I think, in like 37 cities all over the world. And so an idea that we've had is like having Burning Man coincide with a walk, right? And then you have all these people like kind of dancing.
No, those are some crazy. That's an experience and some crazy
and people
photography
like dress
visuals.
up for it and wear like costumes and stuff. And it's
Spinning
a really
fire and stuff.
Yeah, not Burning Man, but Daybreaker, and what they do is amazing. Shout out to Tim if he's ever going to see this or listen. But
Shout out Tim.
What they do is amazing, and I think trying to coincide like a walk where all of these photographers show up and kind of get to photograph these people just like dancing and having
It's
a good
fun,
time.
too.
They only do them in the morning. They do them indoors, outdoors.
When you say morning, you mean like you said
Sunrise.
before sunrise. So
Sunrise.
like that's like what 3, 4, 5?
I mean, yeah, in the winter it's early.
Oh my
But like if
God.
we were able to do like a summer one, and again, that's that
Yeah.
aspect where if then we post a group photo of say 30 people, and somebody sees just a group photo of 30 people, they're gonna be like, oh, it's getting small. It's like, well, no, this one was at 5:30 in the morning, and these 30 people showed up, right? So that's why I always just tell myself, and I take that model from Chris Martin of like, wow, 30 people showed up.
Dude,
right? Instead of
30 is a lot of people to mobilize.
Yeah, no, it is, and so like, I think in 2019 we'll see some different things come about for us.
That'd be really interesting.
Including
and I'll
hopefully.
definitely be a part.
Daybreaker.
But what was I just gonna say? Oh crap! So I think what's really cool is it's essentially you're building this DC community. Like you're doing something in a space in DC that is very void of things. Like sure, meetups are cool, but essentially it's a community in itself, and DC doesn't have many things to do that are cool that aren't just like go to the bar and drink. Like, do you feel that you've done that? Like, do you feel that you've kind of added to like the DC sort of ecosystem of just things to do if you actually live here?
I hope so. I can't speak for everybody, but I think so. I hope so. The absolute coolest thing that I think happens as a result of Walk with Locals is we've had people travel to India together. We have 2 people, Sarah and Melissa, they just went to Iceland together.
Whoa.
They met at Walk with Locals. That seeing those things happen, right? Like those are trips now that those people will never forget. They'll never forget who they went on them with, and they'll never forget where they met that person,
Damn.
right? And so I think being the starting line for these people's lives to possibly change. And it's tough to say that and be like, oh, we're life changing, but we have, and that's not me just thinking that. That's people telling me Walk with Locals actually changed my life. I wanted to leave DC. I came to Walk with Locals. I changed my mind.
No way.
Right? Like, and it's been.
That's actually happened?
Oh yeah. Multiple times. And again, that's a huge responsibility to put on anybody's shoulder to say, you're the reason I stayed here.
That's a huge responsibility.
Don't spoil it.
Right? I mean, it's like an honor at the same time. Like, yo, I did not move myself geographically so I could be a part of this thing. Or
what I try to do now is like, we're going to bounce around. We just had somebody take over from the Washington Post with their food blog, and we're not a food community. We know nothing about it. But the aspect that I love that they did, and you can go back and see it, it's just like 2 posts ago. But the aspect that I loved about it was they talked about kind of the setup of food photography and the photographic side of food photography, right? And people engaged all day with it of like, what's that setup? How do you use that light? Or what's that piece? Or what's that instrument? And that's amazing, right? And so giving people the chance, and again, we're not worried about monetizing, so we have the luxury to put whatever we want on our account and promote anything, promote anyone.
I think that's a beautiful thing.
So if somebody says like, hey, we have this event going on, okay, send it to me. If you don't send it to me, we can't put it up, but send it to me. Like you have to put some effort in, but we will post it forward. We will let people know that it's going on, because if we can elevate what everybody else is doing around us, then that's only going to benefit the city as a whole versus just us as a single entity. If we're only concerned with letting people know what we're doing, we're not actually contributing to the city's growth.
Are you concerned about like the city's growth or like the creative community? I mean, I don't even know if Walk with Locals could even be categorized as a creative community because it's for everyone.
Yeah. So I used to pay a lot of attention to the way our Instagram went out, and in some capacities I still do, but what we like to do, or how I like to go about it, is we'll go 5, 6, 7 posts in a row of posting stuff not even to do with DC locations. Or I mean, granted, our tag's been used. I think we should hit 200,000 uses by the end of the year.
Where's the repost, son?
Yeah.
Someone right now is listening like, Carl, where's my repost?
Yeah,
God damn it.
it's coming. So our hashtag's been used over almost 200,000 times, 6 out of the 7 continents.
Literally at the gallery, I met this lady who was there with like her baby. She's like, yeah, I'm a baby blogger. I'm like, what? She showed me her Instagram account. It's like just her son everywhere.
Yeah.
Literally, she's like, yeah, this is Walk with Locals. I'm like, yeah. And she was like, I tag you guys in every post. I never get reposted. And I was like, this is my thing. I don't know what to tell you, lady. 10 seconds later, to get like a sweet picture for a kid, she literally puts him on the banister of the stairs, and I was like, "What the?" I was like, what? Yeah, it's like this lady's trying to.
Yeah, I think I'm
asking for her.
So I used to try to kind of collect images from all over the world, and not every community has the chance to like put in their hashtag and see 3 photos in a row, and one being Paris, one being Australia, and the other one being South Korea. Like that's a very.
Wait, is Walk with Locals global?
The tag is. Yeah, the tag's been used in more countries than I could even count or that we'd want to go through right now. But and then I would grab 6 or 7, right, and kind of and use those local tags, really research what tags are relevant in that area, post those, and then I would see an influx of people from those areas, and then something going on in DC. Here's that announcement, right? Because we're getting that chance to be like, okay, come pay attention to us. This is what DC is about. And I had a conversation with somebody a few years ago, and they were like, oh, I got to get to New York. That's where everything's happening. And I was like, well why don't you work that hard to make people outside of New York think that that's what DC is, right? Like put the effort in to make everybody else look at DC and be like, that's the next place, right? Our food scene has done an excellent job.
The food scene has become crazy here.
And so I think we're far behind.
The culture scene is what's lacking, like things to do that aren't just sit at a bar.
I think
there's no one putting on good events. I feel like no one's doing.
So you have guys like No Kings Collective who do an amazing job.
No, but I mean, besides those guys, like those events are like the creme.
They do an amazing job. A Creative DC, which I often reference, there in 2016 they used to do these IRL events.
Oh, really?
Or I think it was 2015 they started Creative DC IRL, and I remember going into those and just being like, there's all these people I didn't even know existed in the city. That
all these artists, all these people doing, yeah.
And I take that mindset and kind of put that into Walk with Locals. The one thing that I in many ways in years past I probably have been guilty of myself, but the moment I recognized it about myself, I committed to try to change. And the one thing the direction I think,
what is it? I'm curious.
This might be controversial.
Uh-oh.
But the one thing I'm not liking right now is the idea that we have to caveat when things are paid for versus unpaid for.
You mean like tell people?
In everything that we're doing, right? Like lunch at, if I go to a new restaurant or a new coffee shop and I post 2 or 3 photos in a row, I should not have to tell people like, oh, by the way, this isn't paid for,
ad.
right? Like, and we do these partnerships with companies. I hate the fact that people want to know whether or not it's paid for or unpaid
that is
for.
True. I've noticed how bloggers do that a lot too. They'll give you this big, beautiful post and then you just see hashtag ad.
Yeah. But again, I've got buddies who like go to places and I think, you know, they're like, yo, this place, da, 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 da. And then at the end, they're like, oh, by the way, like this wasn't paid for. And I hope we don't stay there. I hope we get to a point where we can just go places and tell people.
Why is it like, what about that do you not like? Is it?
Well, I think it's just the culture of like things being paid for changed drastically. And you don't have to necessarily, you don't have to be somebody with like 500,000 followers to get something paid to tell people about. And I hope the culture of like, telling people, I understand you have to put these tags now if things are paid for, but I think we should collectively understand that if that's not there, then just assume that it's not paid for, right? Like I shouldn't have to tell people when I'm out of town in St. Louis that like the city of St. Louis isn't paying me to be there. I'm just there as on business.
It's weird. People would assume that just because you're in charge of that stuff, like, oh, he must be doing some business trip in St. Louis, or even now, like before we started a podcast, you're like, yo, let me put this water down. Like no brand deals. Like it's weird that we feel so wrong about advertising things that we enjoy without getting paid for it. Like we've now hit that culture where it's like, I'm not putting you in my.
I'm not before I came here.
Yeah, I'm not tagging you or my thing just because I enjoy you. It's like.
Yeah, I just hope we don't stay there. I understand we're there right now. I hope we don't stay there. I think, and again, this goes back to the whole idea of supporting local. If you truly, truly want to support local, pay them. Mm-hmm. Stop looking for money from local businesses. Again, I understand partnerships exist, but if those partnerships aren't on an even playing field, which is what I pride myself on Walk with Locals being with every partner, we should never sit below anybody, and nobody should theoretically sit below us, because if it's a real partnership, it should be equal. And the growth, and I was thinking about this just literally the last few days when I was out of town. I was getting ready to go in. And
the growth of the Walk with Locals in general.
Just kind of like how we're going to go from here.
That's
good.
That was my next question anyway. Yeah. So this is great segue.
I'm walking. My hotel's here. Parking garage is here. And I got to walk across the street. Mm-hmm. And there's this group of people just kind of walking all from the hotel to their cars. And I'm kind of side by side with one guy. And we get to the point where we turn the corner and we come up on the elevators, and he stops at the elevator, and I just keep going up the stairs. I go up the stairs, and as I come up, he's coming off the elevator. Yeah, he's coming off the elevator, and I realized, like, man, he didn't really get to. We got to the same place. He didn't really get there any faster than me. Why? And then it's early in the morning. I was way too philosophical than I should have been.
Probably had some good coffee too. You know?
But I was on my way to get coffee.
Ooh.
If you're ever in St. Louis, there's a great place called the Mud House. Anyways, not paid. But
why'd you have to say that, Carl?
sorry. But so I looked at this and I sort of like, what's that called? Where like, you know, in the movies when everything just like zooms back and the person becomes forward. I don't know what that's
like third person almost.
No, it's like the person stands still and then like everything zooms out behind them, but like they stay. Anyways, doesn't matter. That sort of happened, and I was like, man. You have 2 decisions in life. You can take an elevator and get somewhere where you're going like that with no work, or you can take the stairs. And I that morning, I say that morning, this is Friday. It's Sunday now. This is like 3 days old mentality, but it's given me such a boost where like, I'm going to consciously work to take the stairs when I'm more than capable. Let me back up. I'm going to take the stairs even though I'm capable of taking the elevator from here on out. Because when you choose that harder path, it doesn't matter how long it takes to get there. You're going to get there, right? Mm-hmm. That guy just went right to the way. And so we could take paid deals. We could take endorsements. We could try to make a lot of money, but at what cost?
That's such a great representation of that analogy is like the stairs. You're climbing, you actually put in the footwork one step over another. Yep. You could trip, you know, it's dangerous. You know, elevator, it's comfy. You just go right up. You just press a button. It's quick. It's simple.
If we start on the first floor and go to 10, and nowhere in between, when we go back down, we have to go right back down to the first floor. If we take the stairs and we put in the work, we have a chance to catch ourselves on the way down and pick ourselves and go right back up.
Because you've seen those levels. You've seen what it looks like to get there.
Exactly. And so my mindset now is like, Walk with Locals can easily take the elevator. We can take the easy way. We can take money. We can do this or that. But at what cost?
Is there like a specific thing that comes to your mind? Like, was there like a sponsorship or brand deal that you're like, that's the elevator?
I think if we could host a walk in Paris and somehow company pays for people to get there or a certain extent of that capacity, that's like dream goal.
Whoa.
But again, I love Paris. I literally just tattooed Paris, the name Paris on my.
Or would that be a tour group?
We are now a tour group.
That's a great tour group.
And that's the thing too, is now I feel I'm more comfortable than ever not having a what's next answer. I used to feel very pressured to have that. I used to feel like, well, if we don't have a what next, then there is nothing next, right? And so
why does there need to be a next?
Exactly. And at the same time, again, if all we do ever is monthly meetups here, there, and there, there's always going to be people that want to see their friends. There's always going to be that excuse, and then that's what it is. And if that's what it is, that's not just what it is. That's what it is, right? Like it's not just. It's this is what we are, right? Like a basketball team doesn't try to be anything other than a basketball team. They're not like, we're a basketball team and we also sometimes do soccer.
That's interesting because there's such a strong sort of like entrepreneurship. Yep. Pressure on everything you do these days. Like it can't just be a walk. It has to be a walk towards building the brand deal to walk.
Restaurants, you see it, I think a lot in restaurants or clothing stores have to be a this and a that. And in some capacities, I think that works. But for the most part, I think, I don't remember who told this story, but they referenced Starbucks as a whole. And they said like Starbucks got into trouble when they all of a sudden were going to do media and do cafes and do this or that. Like just stay who you are, stay in your lane of just be a coffee shop. And that's why people will come to you. But the moment and again, there's nothing wrong with like, okay, Starbucks is doing coffee. Now they're also doing cold brew, right? Like that's an extension of the coffee avenue, but they're staying in their lane of coffee. There's no reason that we have to all of a sudden be like, we're now a production company or we're now a
paid tour group when you come into DC. Exactly. Like we do private tours.
So I don't know what's next. I think 2019, I'd love to launch a website. I think that could be
you don't have a website?
We don't have a website? Yeah, we don't have a website. We've built this thing without collecting a single email.
Whoa.
In fact, because if somebody's listening and they go, well, you didn't give us your email. You gave the partner that we wanted, that we worked with.
That was part of the deal, I guess.
Email. Like they need your email. We could care less what your email is.
Instagram story is almost like an email.
It is, and I think it's been a great platform for us. A fun thing that we've did this year was we launched more clothing than we'd ever done. We did, we started 2017 with a sweatshirt, and then, or kind of early into 2017, we did our first sweatshirt, and then in 2018 we did in early March, we did a partnership with a company, or we did a promotion with a company called Cotton Bureau. I shouldn't even say promotion. They hosted our clothing online and then they shipped everything.
Whoa.
And then we did a promotion with Custom Ink, and they made 125 t-shirts and we just gave them away.
That's really cool though. It's refreshing to hear that take. Like it is what it is. Like why do we have to grow into this thing? Why do we have to meet these expectations? Like why not just be really good at doing what we do? We did.
We tested some things within the past year. We did an event with Urban Stems, and it was kind of like a bouquet building thing right around Thanksgiving. And the idea was like people could come, build their own bouquet, and then like bring those to their Thanksgiving get-togethers. We didn't take a group photo there because it wasn't really a photo thing. It was just more of like Walk with Locals and Urban Stems, kind of a night of building bouquets.
It added to what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like they're forcing it and you're like, okay, let's see how I can make this work. It's like, it assimilates so well into what we already are doing.
Yep. And I look at like the Line Hotel in DC. They're a hotel. They have restaurants, but like they host events, they host this or that, right? And they could easily just sustain and be a hotel.
These
and
boutique hotels are crazy, huh?
But they're adding things that are like getting people in the door, and we've partnered with them. We hosted that walk that we gave those shirts away. We ended at the Line, and again, they provided coffee for us with the understanding that they didn't have to, but they were generous enough to do so. So, we've been really lucky. And our community is stuck with us regardless of if there is some like big thing next. But at the same time, I want to keep it interesting. there may be some people who are thinking like, oh, it's just a walk, right? It may be that for some people. So that's the onus on me to try to make it exciting.
That's the thing that I run into. Like, I don't go to these photographer meetups anymore, is because I'm like, I can't use this content. Like, what am I going to go for, just for some Instagram follows? But it's not that.
Yes, we want to keep it exciting. And
hell yeah.
I think that's a big impetus for February, March, and April of like, all right, now you got we've got people from our community kind of stepping from that group and facing the other way. And I think that'll be really fun. And I can't
wait to see what happens when you leave for a little bit and all these people just start to take over. Like, I'm really curious to see how that's going to, especially in the winter.
It could backfire and they could do a whole heck of a lot better than I do. And then when I come back, people will be like, Can we get the other people back here?
Oh shit!
Can you go away?
That's when you go.
So I'm taking a risk.
That's when you go walk with singles.
Yeah,
now a thing.
Except not. But yeah. So it should be fun.
Hosting and being a part of two different things, my friend.
Yeah. No, it's fun.
Well, dope, man. Well, that's crazy. I'm so glad I got to talk to the dude who organizes, not just dude Carl, who organizes, not at Carl, but just Carl, who organizes like the biggest meetup.
Yeah.
Would you say, is it the biggest one in America?
I think we're probably following behind.
Can you name
anything.
one bigger?
Street Dreams. I mean,
I've never heard of that.
Street Dreams magazine. I think they're like the big kind of OG of in-person
a magazine.
Yeah, they transitioned to a magazine.
Whoa.
They're almost like I'm trying to do them justice, but they're almost in a sense have become like a digital agency. They just did all the content for the New York Marathon with New Balance. My friend Amanda, who's like just a big avid runner.
So that's
like
crazy that you've seen someone do but how they pivoted. And
they were years ahead of us. And in DC too, when I started, and there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of people that bounce around the city. And I think that's great. The fact that there are so many things that exist for people to have those outlets and to meet people, I think is great. For me, it's just remained very, very, very important to never try to be the biggest, the best, the loudest, the most important. I've just always cared about being consistent and being there for our community because, again, we are that starting line for some people, or we have the chance to be that starting line. And if all of a sudden we disappear, then that possibility for that next person to step outside their bubble may not exist. The other things that go on, I personally went through myself of just not feeling quite comfortable. And I'm 10 out of 10 people. I'm probably the most outgoing.
Especially in a city that's very transient. Yeah. There's probably tons of new people coming in who just they don't know anything. And hopefully they see the account and they go, yes, thank you, something.
There was a girl today who's like lived in DC for I think almost a year. And she said she's been following and just has not been, her schedule just hasn't been able to line up. And she's getting ready to leave DC. Today she was able to come. So granted, she's only going to join us for one, but again, she may go back to where she lives and be like, I feel a little bit more comfortable to step out of my bubble and go to different things or go to these events. And if you go to any
it's
event,
like personal development in a weird way.
And I think that's cool. And again, that's bigger and louder and more important to me than any amount of hashtags. I love how many hashtags we get. I think it's awesome. It's so cool to like type in a name and a brand that like you operate and see so many photos.
Just sit there at night. Oh, the cloud's so high.
At some point it actually was like, I cannot keep up with these. Like so many photos are in this feed.
So you don't have like a social media manager either?
Nope, it's just me. So I'm rotating between mine, my Fit District account, Walk with Locals, my film account.
The wrong business to dev guys listening to this, like, wait till I shoot him an email.
We get a lot of emails of people wanting to help and wanting to contribute and wanting to take over but I firmly believe that the voice on Walk with Locals is such an extension of who I am and who our community, I think, has developed into. And I used to think like I needed to tell people exactly what we are. And that's why I loved having you do it, because we can never be as convincing telling people what we are than hearing it from their own friends.
If I can come away with the meaning that you want, right, essentially.
Exactly. And so like I used to think like this is what we are, but at some point I have to understand that we're not what we think we are, we're what our community understands us to be.
Super big facts.
And so if people can go through an explanation of what Walk with Locals is and avoid using Instameet, then I think we're doing a good enough job.
Didn't even cross my mind.
If you pull in an agency and say, this is our community, please be our voice, it's just going to be stale.
Instagram Meetup,
Rice Krispies.
Bring your camera. Yeah. Model
Rice
friends.
Krispies are good. I don't have like a beef with Rice Krispies. I'm just saying.
But you clearly hate Coca-Cola.
It's the most basic, like, oh, it's just. Anyways, yeah.
Well, shit, man. Well, on behalf of a lot of people in DC, thank you for what you do, man.
Thank you.
It's super cool. I appreciate it. I'm gonna keep going and hopefully find that love. You know.
You know, I think I get that question a lot of like, how do I start this or how do I do that? And you just have to be okay with the fact that it may not be what you think it's going to be every time. And again, that's why my mindset is going into these things and saying nobody's going to show up today, because then one person does. And the coolest part is like, I'm standing there and it's like,
this legit seems like if someone listens to this whole thing, it's like the blueprint of how to start a meetup or how to start something.
Yeah.
Like have like zero expectation, you know, put the people coming first, you know, and things amongst that will probably take care of themselves.
Yeah. We've had people
consistency
like
too.
leave DC and be like, yo, hey, can I start this in this city? Or, hey, I've been following you guys for a while. I live in XYZ. You know, would you guys be okay with me starting one of these in this city? And I say, start something, but start it under your own moniker.
Yeah, don't call it Walk with Locals. Yeah,
because again, we don't know your city like you do, right? I had the luxury of knowing DC, and I'm still learning DC, and that's what's really fun. And there's people who like know more about DC who can help Walk with Locals, and they do. And so this idea of like being like use our name but in your city, it doesn't mean anything to the people that live there if it's like another brand coming in and being like,
that's exactly what it feels like.
City.
That's
but
exactly
if you're
what it feels
from
like.
there, just start your own thing. If you want to reach out and ask us questions about kind of how we got started, please, you're more than welcome to do so. But nobody's going to understand where you live better than when you do. So when we've walked in Baltimore, Philly, and New York as well, and we've always walked with people who live in those cities
because they know the best walks.
They know their city, they know where they're at versus better than we do.
Real quick before we end, just kind of like quickly, what's like your favorite walk in DC? Even if it's not something that the group's done, like what's your favorite walk?
Oh man, I'm trying to think. We've had like 58.
Was there one that you were like, oh, this was like the best site, or like something came together, or something was just like that took my breath away?
I think actually it would take me a long time, and I'd have to do like an NCAA bracket about it.
Okay, well, how about this?
But recently, the one that you were just at as well, at the Jefferson, that to me stands out, especially within the last like year or so.
That was a crazy one
because
a lot of people.
Sun and the like.
Yeah.
It was, the temperature was perfect. The sun was perfect. There was like a few clouds. I think it was kind of like muggy earlier in the day, and then it cooled off.
Yeah.
The sun was perfect. We were all there at Jefferson, and like the Marine One.
Bro, you look like a goddamn superhero giving that speech. If anyone's watching this, please go to my earlier videos. Like the clickbait titles, like America's Biggest Meetup, which might be this one too. But like literally, I even put like epic music behind you. It was so epic, like the memorial, the blue clouds. I was like,
it was amazing. That one definitely stands out. That would probably be top 3 but it's so recent that it feels number 1.
What's the craziest thing? Or like what's like, has anything nuts happened? Like it's like anything nuts happened during the walk or anything like that?
No, but I could imagine it.
Like someone's like trying to take a picture and just like fell into the river or something. Like, I don't know,
actually,
nuts?
It's not crazy, and it may not even be that cool to anybody. But we walked in Foggy Bottom a long time ago, and we walked by the fire station that was down there. And people started like taking pictures of the fire truck that was like in its like garage. They had the doors open, and the firemen were just kind of like hanging out. A couple guys were smoking cigars, and people were photographing this fire truck. And the guy was just like, hold on. And he like got up and goes and gets in the fire truck and like pulls it out and starts like telling people all about it. And that to me was like a really...
That's cool.
You can't plan for that sort of thing, right?
That's super cool.
It was just really cool that those guys were so up to do that and really supportive. They're in our group photo, actually. If you go far enough back, you'll see the fire truck.
Like when that happens, like, all right, we're taking the group photo here on this fire truck. Big stogies in the mouth, everything.
It was fun. And you know, I think what's been really fun is I think each walk means something to somebody else. I know when we actually backtrack because I do know the answer. Our clothing drives are probably the most memorable to me because they have the biggest impact outside of the internet.
Oh, right.
This last one we donated. Yeah, we donated over 600 items to Martha's Outfitters, Martha's Table, if you know it.
Wow.
And we didn't collect a reimbursement. You know, we didn't itemize it. We didn't need anything for tax purposes. We're not claiming nothing.
It was just like,
it's just here, take it.
Jesus.
And so that to me, those ones, we've done 3 of them now.
You did some crazy shit in those mosh pits, huh, Carl?
I got rattled around.
Well, hey, man, appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And if you just want to let people know where they can find you, please go ahead and plug the socials or anything.
Just Walk with Locals.
At Walk with Locals.
If you want to find me, I'm at Carl Nard and then carlnard.film as well.
Word.
So, yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for coming. Well, that's it, guys. That's The Angle. Peace.
Bye, guys.